Yep, it's slow. Yep, we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the July 2023 Personnel and Finance Committee meeting here at City Hall Council Chambers at 6 o'clock p.m. Call the meeting to order. The first item in the agenda is to discuss and consider approving the June vouchers.
I make a motion to approve the June vouchers.
I'll second your motion.
Questions or discussion on the June vouchers? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those are approved for forwarding for the next council meeting. The next item on the agenda is consider approving the meeting minutes from the June 27th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 27th meeting.
I will second the motion.
Questions or discussion on the meeting minutes from the June 27th meeting? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those are approved to go to the next council meeting. Section 4, agenda items for consideration. Item number 1 is consider writing off the 2022 personal property tax bill for J.W. Perry Incorporated, which is out of business, for the amount of $186.88.
Motion to approve.
I will second that.
And
Go ahead.
Chair Russell, I would anticipate that we'll have a 2023 bill as well in December. So,
Yep.
but obviously they're out of business, so we're not going to collect.
Is that property up for sheriff still? I think it's on the board.
It's up again.
Is it? Okay.
The last one was improper. The one out on Hill Street didn't sell this.
Land and buildings, or?
This particular personal property bill is related to the former floral business.
Okay. Further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that's approved for the record. Next item, 60-day review and update and discussion of the City of Merrill, Wisconsin Public Service electric and natural gas charges.
You asked that it be reviewed every other month. And this is the update on city garage, fire station, city hall, and the Smith Center. If you have any questions. And it's my understanding the Smith Center has ice in it, so that will be billed back to the user.
It does right now.
Yeah.
I have no additional questions.
I have no additional questions.
Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 3 under section 4, and that's a status review of the 2022 tax settlement overview.
Yeah, you have a quick overview here. It's pretty comparable to prior years. Delinquent real estate is a bit up. There's a major east side commercial property that's delinquent, but Lincoln County makes the city whole on the real estate property taxes. Personal property is a little bit higher, and city attorney's working on that with follow-up letters. On a positive, the delinquent utilities is the lowest I've seen in 20 years. And you have a breakdown in terms of the overall settlement, what the city basically paid out, about $12 million. You have the, where that went to which entity. And then I had 2 charts. One was the, or 3 charts. One is the delinquent real estate. Then you have the personal property. And the last one is the unpaid delinquent utility charges. And it's made a major difference having Lincoln County foreclosing on properties in a timely manner. We're getting these things cleared up.
Kathy, on page 97, towards the bottom, it says total unpaid taxes and credits for $23,000. Does that include the unpaid utilities that are listed above?
That includes the state credits. That's the bulk of it, on top in the middle of the page there. And it basically does include delinquent personal property, delinquent special charges, and delinquent utility charge. I mean, basically, it's the key is to tie it all out. At this point, the state of Wisconsin yesterday paid the city $761,000 for the school and first dollar credit, and we invest that until about the 11th of August, and then we send it to the county treasurer, who then sends the money back to us. So that's in process. Happy to answer any other questions.
I have nothing. Any members have anything? All right, we'll move on then to sub-agenda item number 4 under section 4. Continued discussion regarding accumulated sick leave payable at retirement. This was referred from the January 24th, 2023 meeting for further discussion and possible consideration closer to budget discussions.
I guess I will just suggest that since contracts are up for negotiation, that be looked at as far as what other communities, what other areas are doing for that, and if there's any way that we can do something with that. Obviously, grandfathering in and making it just apply to new hires or something like that. I don't know. I guess I'm just saying that I would still like that to be part of the long-term discussion for budgeting, not just unions, but for across the city. Maybe reducing the number of hours, or I don't know, or cap the pay, just to keep that in mind. Just my thoughts.
I'm okay with capping any new employee at 800 hours, period. And all it's gonna do is create, hopefully, good employees that get to 800 hours and start using sick leave. But I'd rather have that than pay out. You know, in my personal experience, when I capped out, I usually like to schedule my sick leave. It was burning it. But hopefully your employees would do that. But it's just better than having this endless unfunded pit. We have to somehow make a preventive step towards that. And I don't see it for any current employees whatsoever, but for future employees, I think it's something. I don't know any municipalities that have a system like we do. I mean, when I left the county, I left $16,000 on the table because we had 2 choices: take it or leave it. And I didn't stay long enough to take it, so that's what happened.
When you say schedule your sick leave, that was PTO over there, right?
No, it was not. You just feel like that sick when there are enough people around anyways.
Is this, I guess, question for the co-administrators? Is this a recruiting incentive that's talked about with prospective employees? I mean, is it
pretty unique? Not unique, I should say, but the amount is unique. If you treat it as a retirement benefit and you retain those hours throughout your entire career, it's a lot. You know, it's a big investment into an employee, and they look at it as a retirement investment. I'm sure for those of us that are nearing that point, you're probably working another year to make up for that. You know, if you're tucking away somewhere tax deferred, right? But to the point, I guess we can look at strategies to kind of wither it on the vine, so to speak, with incoming employees. I think the right thing to do is what you said, is retain it for the current who's towards it, and try to find a way to limit it over time.
And do a comparable so we are consistent with other municipalities, so or private sector doesn't have quite quite that, but they have other perks that.
Right. And you, or somebody had mentioned, other municipalities have it, but not to the extent that we do, or not to the volume, the amount that we.
What was your total now, what did they allow you?
It went up to 800 eventually. It was at 600, it went up to 800. And you could only apply that, if you retired, you could apply that towards insurance premiums. There was no cash buyout whatsoever. It only went to your for insurance.
It's probably a good time to look as we do the negotiations and comparables.
Yeah.
It's gonna be in those other contracts that we review, it should be.
Can we have this back by October, so we can say, if we were to make a decision, we could say all hires after January 1st for non-represented?
Yeah, I think we want it into our ongoing discussions and then for whatever we decided in here, for the new change of policy January 1.
So you want back on this agenda in October?
Up to the chair.
Yes.
Okay.
We should probably put it on September so that we're working on with the
Okay.
budget.
Okay.
That's just my suggestion.
Right, because, yeah, we're gonna talk about those in a minute here, right? Yeah. All right, well, thanks, everybody. Any other comments or questions on this agenda item? Okay. And sub-agenda item number 5, consider 2024 budgets before submission to Lincoln County. And that's both the ambulance, EMS, and the T.B. Scott Public Library.
I'll make a motion to approve both budgets as submitted.
I will second that motion.
Questions or discussion on the budgets that have been submitted by those two entities?
I just have one additional question for Lori. And I know we talked about this last year. What specific things can be covered by that endowment fund? Is it like programs that you run at the library, or?
It can be, it can cover special programs. It can't be any operational costs whatsoever. No operational expenses can be covered by the endowment. So, but we can, I mean, if we have a big program, we can request things like that from the endowment fund to cover things like that.
Can it be spent on capital items like carpeting, furniture?
Furniture, yes.
And the library endowment has paid portions for their parking lot in the past.
Yes.
I think that sign last year too, didn't they, Larry?
Yes. They've taken, yeah, they've taken care of the new signs that are in front of the library.
Thank you.
So is it individual items based on the board's decision, or can we say that it can be used for capital expenses?
It's based upon individual requests to the endowment fund.
I think they helped with the boilers a few years back too, didn't they?
They did short-term. They financed it in the interim as an emergency repair, and then the city repaid them. But that was totally city borrowing.
But all those examples seem to group together as capital type expenses. Further questions or discussion on the
Alderperson Russell?
yes, go ahead.
The ambulance is for the operation portion is for the 9 personnel, and it's slightly under a 3% increase. Then there were some capital items, and perhaps the fire chief could explain those, that are more appropriately not the city's responsibility.
Chief Klug?
Sure. We're due based on the life expectancy of the 3 cardiac monitors. Those should be due for replacement. Internally, we've gone through a review process to select new monitors. This really should be a cost borne by the county since they own the ambulance service. My understanding is that the current cardiac monitors that we have were acquired when Chief Savoni wrote a federal AFG grant, which would have applied to fire departments. So one potentially could make the case that actually the city owns them, but with the contract in place with the county pays for the ongoing maintenance of them and the usage of them. So this goes back quite a few years. I mean, like I said, I could spend quite a bit of time talking about history of the contract and those type of things, but for sure as a paramedic level ambulance service, they're essential for us to maintain services. Without them, obviously, potentially impacts the health and safety of the community as well as future revenue for the county, really. So we are, I think, on the next agenda item going to discuss an opportunity to apply for a grant and pay for replacement of those, but that's where I'd refer back to the finance director if this is something then that should also be forwarded to the county for their consideration.
Definitely both of, I think you have 2 capital requests. One was the cardiac monitors, and there's a page there, and then you're proposing submitting something to the Bierman Foundation, both for City of Merrill and City of Tomahawk, or Tomahawk ambulance, I'm sorry.
So is that the strategy to try and obtain grant funding, or is it something outside the Bierman Foundation, depending on the answer that's received?
I think you want to do both. You want to let the county know so they can possibly consider it with their capital improvement plan and then submit the grant application to the
Right.
Bierman Foundation. Unless you have other advice, correct?
So if I'm understanding this though, if the Bierman grant is approved, all's well in that regard, but if not, then you would only be looking at the first capital item of the replacement of the.
Actually, it's that if the Beard family's not approved, it's not our problem. It's county approved. So you would have to go to the county for that money. I think this is more of just a courtesy for us to see what he's doing.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify is whether that.
Yeah, and based on working with the finance director and the strategy of the city has been to once again report out 10-year capital improvement plans for replacements. So we still, whether it's under the county's umbrella or the city's umbrella, this has been something that's been in the works for replacement here based on that process.
And I guess I would propose that I would submit the operating budget to the county finance director as well as the cardiac monitors and let them know that we're applying for grant money.
Mm-hmm.
The county EMS committee is aware too of the potential of us applying for the grant. They've actually given their blessing for us to write for it as well.
They actually asked.
Okay. All right, further discussion or questions in this agenda item? Hearing none, we'll move on to sub-agenda item number 6, continued review and discuss the draft 2024 budget timeframes and budget criteria.
You saw this at your last meeting. I've briefly updated and included the WRS retirement rates, which we had after your last meeting. We met with the city's insurance broker from M3, and we are actually getting competitive quotes, both from Aspire's health plan and Security Health Plan. And we hope to negotiate that down to a 0% increase or reduction on health insurance. Our experience so far is very good. So this is the time to do that strategically. At this point, I'm kind of mixing what I'm working on. I'm waiting for departments to submit capital information, but I am working on other departments' operation budgets. This afternoon, I sent the information out to the street commissioner and or street superintendent and public works director on garbage and recycling. I think it's really shifted how the street department personnel are being utilized, and I need a lot more information, and I'm gonna kind of make the street department one of the priorities to get that one done so that we know what we're looking at. Be happy to answer any other questions here. We do have, I went through one Zoom meeting with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. They probably have more questions than they have answers. And we're waiting for the Wisconsin Department of Revenue to come out with their implementation guidelines on Wisconsin Act 10.
Kathy, when it comes to the additional money that we'll be receiving from the state of Wisconsin or the proposed money, do we even know if this is a one-time shot? Is this a continuing funding increase or?
No, it's not a one-time shot. It's an increase to the base by almost $700,000. The second year, which would be 2025, it looks like about a 2.3% increase in that. So basically, if you take the almost 700,000 plus over the whole entire shared revenue amount that the city gets, another 2.3% for 2025. So it's a continuing increase as long as state sales tax increases. There's also I don't know if anybody's seen anything in terms of highway money, but there should be some money for transportation. I'm not sure what that is at this point in time. So that's one of the things that come in later. But on a revenue side, this is probably the most revenue that we've had in decades. So the key at this point in time is structuring it. I would recommend structuring it so that you have maybe some capital paid out of that money, and so that you can handle 2025, because you're not going to have another $500,000 on top of that for 2025. Happy to answer any other questions you have.
Are you kind of anticipating these committee of the whole meetings to be broken up sort of like last year?
That was your last meeting. You said that you wanted some evening meetings, and I think we can
Just kind of that same outline?
Yeah. I mean, I guess in terms of the capital improvement plan, I guess I'm probably just going to provide the specific 2024 request for you. And then you can maybe deal with both of those at the same time, operating and capital. That may be a way to function to streamline the whole process. Be happy to, any suggestions you have, I'll be happy to take care. I mean, I have provided the mayor and the interim city administrators a number of assumptions, and I'm waiting for feedback on that, if my assumptions make sense on how I'm doing this. Obviously, as we talked at the last meeting, we need to backfill anywhere we had ARPA money. And that includes like the library, and Richmond Center, Aquatic Center. Yeah, one of the last things I can get a good handle on is the Aquatic Center, because we're waiting for the final bills. But I'll press the utility to see if we can get a final reading earlier than normal. Certainly hope it's not a $20,000 bill like last year. It shouldn't be.
It's looking good so far.
Fingers crossed.
They found and fixed a lot of the problems.
Further questions or discussion on the agenda item on the floor? Hearing none, we'll move on to sub-agenda item number 7 under section 4. Updated recommendations from the July 20th Marketing and Communications Committee regarding the job description for communications specialist contractor.
Donna, you want?
Since since
Trying to
you,
get.
yeah,
Madam
well,
Chair.
yeah, exactly.
Okay,
right.
guys, it would really be nice to have a little heads up on some of these things.
Less than 30 days on the job, right?
So, at the marketing meeting, we discussed the potential job description. The co-administrators came back with questions that they had, wanting to know whether we were looking to hire someone as an employee or to hire someone as a consultant, which apparently has different qualifications and definitions versus the specialist or whatever the former position had been called. So we gave feedback to them, and they're supposedly working on a draft for our next committee meeting in August.
We were looking at something more along the lines of task oriented versus 30 hours a week at X number of dollars. That was kind of the direction the three of us had talked about. I don't know if you guys have any opinion on that, but that was.
Can you give us an example of that?
Well, with this marketing firm that we're going with, Midwest Communication, one of the jobs of the consultant would be to review the analytics that they get back every month and kind of break it down. We can do the layman's term, but we'd like someone to dig into that and have someone to report to. And if we have certain other topics that we want to cover, Facebook marketing, or there was a bunch of stuff that was talked about. The communication side, I think most of the department heads can take care of their own communication. Some of the, if you want to call it, feel-good stories that we don't do a good job communicating. Some of those were previously done by the administrator, and she was working on some housing stuff. I think that has to be a collaboration between probably the three of us, and then a little bit of creativity from whoever wants to give us input. But I think a lot of this stuff can still take place in-house. We didn't see the value, the total value of 30 hours a week.
And I think from the marketing's position, they they definitely wanted to make sure that the media contact things, the media and actually marketing Merrill outside the community are the kind of the key components of what this position would focus on. So there were some task-oriented things, which I understand, but there are also sometimes where it's like, how do you define that as a job or a task? I could see if you were saying to someone, let's hire someone to create a video for this purpose. Okay, start video and video, job done kind of thing. So I think some things are more clearly defined than others. And as far as an hourly position versus a job or however you want to phrase it, I don't think that the hourly is a big take one way or the other as far as the marketing committee is concerned. I think they just really want to make sure things keep moving forward and that things keep happening to take care of some of the things that really everybody else could do, but to have some consistency on some of this also helps.
To compare it to, say, an engineering consultant, we have Strand do stuff for the treatment plant, and then on the water side, and they're tasks, they're specific jobs that we, I won't say get numbers for, but it could be similar to that. If we find somebody that, say it's Midwest Communication or a marketing firm that would give us a number, and this is our rate for $75 an hour, and we give them a task and they complete it. I just think that would be a better way to do it than just to have somebody every week, 30 hours, same bill.
With a little oversight over that, and then there's also the contractor versus employee issue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the hourly rate really becomes a problem sometimes. pay by the task than it is the hour. You have a contractor, official contractor, so that was the purpose behind that. It is difficult to put that in the description, what we want done.
So next month it's going back to the marketing communication.
Okay,
Because
so,
they'll forward something to this body next.
okay.
Or backward something to this body, because I noticed that next month cleanup is the 22nd and marketing is the 24th, which kind of throws another whole month on the process, which I'm so really avoid.
That's because of the fair.
Hmm?
That's because of the fair.
Well, we can report a job description that we'll be working on that before that.
Should be contract, we shouldn't even call it a job description.
Yeah.
Should just be
Task.
contractors.
Yeah.
Task position.
You're correct.
We could meet on the 28th as well. That's a different night, agenda item coming up.
Yeah. Are the duties of the department heads when we talk about marketing communications, are they implied in being done by all the department heads right now, or are we talking about something new?
I think that, I'll use Josh as an example, he does a great job promoting the fire department,
Right.
what's happening down there. Corey and the police department, or whoever your Facebook person is, I mean, they're always updating, things like that. Tammy and Lori do a good job. I mean, I think that we can get the message out there. We don't need the AP writing style, I guess, you know what I mean?
And Hallie's helping too.
Yeah, Hallie's she's really stepped up to the plate, and I give her a lot of credit for doing that. And Merrill Productions, or whatever they're called now,
Merrill Community Media.
there you go, I've been working with them, doing YouTube trailers, things like that, so.
What's the correct name, Nathan?
Merrill Community Media. We're going
Merrill
along.
Community Media.
We're going along the lines of like what Oshkosh and other municipalities have done, because it's for the community of Merrill. So.
And the Park and Rec has always been able to
Yep.
kind of.
So, just a couple follow-ups to that. So does Hallie's contract, does that have to be reviewed? Is she doing things different and outside of that based on not having somebody in this other position right now?
It probably should be reviewed and updated. Right, I have had a conversation with her.
Okay.
She is fine with it the way it is right now. She's not gonna push the issue per se.
Right.
If we're gonna put some extra work on her, I think we need to.
Okay, and the reason I ask about if, for the department heads, it's something that's been ongoing or something that's new is, you know, the co-administrators and your full plates, and has that had an impact on what some of the other department heads, you know, can or can't do?
I don't think so. I mean, I think everybody kind of took care of their own thing before. They did run stuff by the previous administrator, but then it was kind of bounced back and they ran with it. And that's how I always assumed it. Our stuff was done, and Corey kind of same.
Would agree. The previous was kind of a coordinator, more or less.
Okay.
So you guys are really more focused on some type of marketing firm that would market Merrill to outside entities rather than.
It's an idea. Something to consider at least.
Mhm.
And the previous marketing specialist, she did a lot of good things. We're not going there, but moving forward, I think the opinion is let's get something for our dollar. I mean, as far as marketing outside, I know it was a long way to get to that point, but.
Mhm. Yeah, because I think that was the point we were finally at, was where we were just about ready to start marketing outside of Merrill type things. And that's still available, I think.
is a new position that will be fluid as we go along. That's my opinion.
And again,
One year from now, we may be discussing something totally different.
Right.
like Corey says, don't call it a position. It's a,
No.
it's a
An
job,
entity?
job description. Yeah, what? Consultant, yeah.
All right, and we'll discuss the meeting timelines, as Alderman McKeever mentioned here in a few minutes. But we do want marketing communications to come back with,
We'll bring something to
Oh,
that at
yeah.
the next meeting. I
Okay.
know. So Don and I have been working together with
Okay.
Alan.
thank you, Your Honor. Any further discussion or questions on that agenda item? Hearing none, we'll move on to sub-agenda item number 8, discuss the job description for finance director. And Kathy, I know you had sent out a couple emails, I think, with one that had your job description on it, and then a recommendation that the city ordinance also be looked at.
Yeah, I redlined this section and suggestions, but I didn't really look at the ordinance specifically. I think there may be some incompatibility issues that it just needs to be double checked to make sure that it's covering everything. But those are my suggestions, and just, I told, before the meeting, I told Lori, one of my suggestions is that we're in a different time frame on the redevelopment authority. I don't think necessarily moving forward that you really want the future finance director to be the secretary of the redevelopment authority. I think that's a function the city clerk can take care of, doing agendas, minutes, and all the legal process that goes with the independent body. That's just my suggestion. You can do whatever you choose to. Has everybody seen my list of the 3 years that are in process? Yeah, 23. At any time, you have 3 different years. Could you hand it out? All right. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
Yep.
1, 2, 3.
In here.
Is it, okay. Basically, in terms of, just to highlight, where I'd like to be, I will be retired by this time next year, so you really need to get somebody on board, please. I will take care of much of the prior year, the 12/31/23 information. There are things that will not be totally done unless the auditors, we light a fire under the auditors to get them going. So that's kind of where, for 2023, finishing that off. Current year, 2024, all the monthly work, all the fiscal stuff that needs to happen on a regular, daily, weekly, monthly basis. I think that's something, for the most part, the new finance director should be handling. And I would hope that we'd have a transition period. I would suggest at least, well, minimally you need 30 days, but I would suggest you probably want to be thinking about 3 to 4 months. If you had somebody at the beginning of April, that would be ideal in terms of the cycle. You obviously have some major things happening next year with the market reassessment that I think the finance director and the city clerk need to be really on top of what's going on there. That's 2024. The last thing I'm looking at finalizing would be the 23 tax settlement, and basically turning it over to the finance director to do the last entries in August, because I will be retired by then. Future budget, that's another thing that would be critical to get the new finance director here so that they can work on capital improvement plan, basically start working on the 2025 budgets earlier in the process, and there are a lot of regulations that will need to be complied with. So those are my thoughts on timeframes. I mean,
Thank you.
I don't have a specific date on retirement yet. I'm working through the employee trust funds in the next couple weeks to get a specific time frame. And I have lots of things to take care of. So.
Thank you for providing that information, Kathy.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Your Honor.
Can we go back to the job description?
We can. For the communications,
No, for the
for the
finance.
finance director, okay.
Okay. Everybody should have a copy of that in the packet that Kathy provided with some
Mhm.
red line. I also talked to the treasurer staff and asked them, and Kathy took care of a lot of what they had suggested in here also. But if we go down to, under principal duties and responsibility on page 1, number 2, it says not inconsistent, just make it consistent.
Yeah, I don't know, I
Yeah.
thought about chopping that, it seemed really weird, the wording.
I think the next page is good, I just need some notes that they had provided. For on page 3, reports to, in my mind, it should be city administrator, mayor, and council. You know, I mean, I know the main reporter is going to the administrator or whatever model we have at that time, but I think that it should be stated mayor and council, and then supervises, it should be treasurer office staff, not clerk treasurer office staff. Because Lori has, or the city clerk has no oversight over that staff as of right now.
In the past, that was supervised by the clerk, correct?
I'm not 100% sure, but.
That would have been prior to when had elected city clerk treasurer, prior to the finance position being created.
So that was the only change I did on number 3.
Right.
Page 3.
Just a question on that. So when Mr. Heidemann was in transition, did Kathy as the deputy clerk, and I'm just making that up, not knowing the correct title, took over duties and responsibilities when we didn't have a clerk? And is that something that was in her contract? Is that something that's in the ordinance, Tom?
It's in our ordinance.
It'd be an ordinance, Kathy doesn't have a contract.
But is it currently? I mean, she performed the duties.
It's an ordinance.
Well, actually, so the way it was evolved, it was the former city clerk designated me as the deputy city clerk. But I mean, there's been really reluctance on the existing staff to somebody to step up to take that responsibility, although now that you have an office manager, maybe, I mean, I think Brenda in many ways functions as a deputy. I don't know, Lori, if you had an opinion on.
I guess it depends upon what a deputy city clerk does.
Yeah, well, I think that's something maybe you need to.
You know, I don't know what they
In
do.
your stead,
Yeah,
with their recent mail.
Yeah.
In my-
They'd be able to pick up that procedure manual and they should be able to follow it.
In my opinion, I think that position was honorary until we didn't have a city clerk, and then you stepped in and filled his role. But I also think that if we designate a city employee as that role, they should be a resident of the city of Merrill. Maybe that is why
Right.
they did not choose one person or the other, but you were always a city resident, so it wasn't an issue.
That's a good point.
There's only one person.
Which then limits.
Yeah, Julie.
Page 4 on the job description on the top, it says candidates are required to pass a physical examination. Treasurer staff thought that and a drug screening would be a good add on that.
Is there anything in the ordinance currently about that?
All new hires, we do
The
that.
personnel manual has all
Yeah, I
that.
heard like 4 different answers.
New hires, that's in our manual.
But I think it should be probably in the description here. And then as far as job conditions and work locations, at the end, working from home is not an option to be added in there just as a work from home title in there, so there's nothing in there saying you can or cannot. So I mean, I think we need to put that in there that it should not be allowed. And then physical requirements, after talking on the first line, must be able to lift and carry up to 25 pounds.
Where's that going to do?
Yeah, I don't know, but
Records. Okay.
records or boxes of paper. That was the only changes that I see. I'm working with the staff, so.
On the personnel, I guess in terms of the ordinance, there is some, if I look at, if you go through that, there's some commingling of the title of city administrator, finance director. I think that needs to be taken a look at. I mean, when I was initially hired, we did not have a city administrator, so.
Okay, Your Honor, if we could, if the committee could receive a copy, not right now, but of your notes, you know, that would be appreciated, since we're gonna be the ones to review and approve and recommend whatever the final description is. I would ask the clerk to look at that issue of the deputy or assistant clerk just for future discussion, so we know where we're going with that. And then ask the city attorney and the co-administrators if they would take a look at the ordinance and review what's there. And I think we're all on the same sheet of music for, you know, the changes and modernizing, you know, the job description, for lack of a better term, and just everybody do their part, and then we'll have this on our agenda for next month as well.
What I can do is, if I can enlist the assistance of Krista.
She's been in a good mood lately, I think you're saying.
I'll have her make some changes to this document.
How long have you been back?
Yeah, it'll be, yes, twice better when I'm. Oh, we can handle that.
Just, I'll go over this with her.
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah,
and then I can email it to each of you separately,
Right.
and then, you know.
And is she gonna be the bearer of the current working draft that we're gonna be using? I'm just asking.
She can be.
Okay.
I nominate her.
Yeah.
I know she'd
We
be
all,
she'd be honest.
we all have faith and confidence in Krista.
She's closest to me, so I can
Yeah.
run back and forth.
All right, does that sound like a plan? Any further discussion or questions on that?
Talk about timeframes later on.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess that's what I was kind of driving at. If Krista can get the changes made, if I can get them to the P&F committee, if you can get back to me, don't email as a group, email me separately. And if you guys are fine with this job description, I think we need to
Move sooner than later.
move sooner or later, get it on the League of Municipalities website, get it on Lori's clerk,
Yeah.
the clerk network email thing.
Mhm.
Get it out there, we can talk to the auditors and see if they have anybody in mind or something.
There's also a city, Wisconsin Government Finance Officer Association. I would suggest that that's an email network. as
All of
well.
them, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these that we're discussing, and, you know, time is of the essence, so
And sooner than later, we move
the
on.
committee members good to go with that? Okay.
So I'll have Krista email
Okay.
us by end of the week probably.
All right. No, that sounds like a plan. Thanks for the recommendation, Your Honor. Further questions or discussion on this agenda item? Hearing none, we'll move on to section 5 of the agenda, and that's the monthly reports. And consider a motion to place monthly reports on file.
Unless the First Lady of the Fourth Ward has any questions, I have none, and I make such recommendation or motion.
The First Lady has asked all her questions and had them all answered prior to the meeting.
As
so
always.
I appreciate everybody's feedback on those. So I will second the motion.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor for putting the monthly reports on file. Questions or discussion from anybody on any of the monthly reports?
I do have to comment about arts development projects. One of my wife's coworkers is done with her lease in the Rhineland area. She's looking for an apartment. And she actually thought about moving back to Anoka, Minnesota because the rental rates are cheaper and the availability is much higher over there. And that was very disappointing. I'm hoping, because she's very good at what she does, to keep her in this area. But I don't know what we got to do with that, but that's a different item to discuss.
Just a follow-on comment to Alderman Kaler's comment on that. I do know that the Webster Street apartments are rapidly filling up. And I don't know, I can't quote you %, but there's a lot of new tenants there and a lot of mail and packages going there. So I mean, there's people.
North building isn't open, is it?
Yeah, it is.
I made the observation, I think I talked to a couple other people, a lot of the people that live there are from Iowa and Texas plates. So I'm thinking they're probably welders from Agra or, you know, something along those lines.
Yeah. And take a look at the plates at the Jackson Street, and there's some of the same. So I think it was said, I mean, that's a topic of conversation for a cow or some small ad hoc meeting or whatever. Further questions or discussion on the monthly reports? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those are approved to be forwarded for the next council meeting. Section 6, public comment. Anybody present in the council chambers or on the teleconference would like to make public comment? Last call for public comment. Hearing none, we'll move on to section 7 of the agenda. Date and time of our next meeting proposed as Tuesday, August 22nd at 6 p.m. And was the marketing communications meeting changed due to the fair is what
It was
you said?
changed due to the fair, so we're
Okay.
meeting the 24th.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
could be
the
the 20th.
P&F is just, it's a standard,
Right.
would be the
right.
standard date, but you could change it.
I think it'd be the 20th or 29th.
What is the Tuesday?
29th.
Because we have health and safety on the 28th.
Oh, yeah. Well, then I can't do the 29th.
29th is what?
Well, health and safety is that Monday.
Yeah, I have a mandatory training, it'd be held the 28th and 29th. It's one of those days I can pick, so if we have meetings both those days, I can't do it. Do you want to do the 30th? Can we do the 30th?
Yeah, there's nothing on the schedule. So it'd be a Wednesday.
Right.
Would be okay with Wednesday the 30th?
Yeah.
6 o'clock.
Same time, same location, just a different date, Wednesday, August 30th. Does that work for everybody? All right, moving on to section 8 of the agenda. That's to consider closed session. I'd ask the city attorney if you would
The committee may convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 1985 1C and F to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of an employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction, to consider financial, medical, social, or personal histories of disciplinary person's preliminary consideration or specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, which, excuse me, discussed in public, would be likely to have substantial adverse effect on any person referred to in such histories or data involved in such problems or investigations, to continue review of recently reported incidents related to city employees, and to review the personnel file and status of city employees.
Make a motion to go to closed session.
I will second the motion.
All those in favor of going into closed session signify by saying aye.
Roll call.
Or-
Alderperson Russell,
Aye.
Alderperson Kaler, Alderperson Brumnick.